is Rashonda Thornton, the host of the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. Thanks to the local farmers and wonderful supporters such as Undeniably Dairy, we are proud to present to you the weekly Wellness Coalition panel series. This is a 10-part series where myself and a rotating cast of experts will discuss meaningful topics focusing on what means the most to you during this COVID crisis. So that means every Thursday, I'll have panel guests that will bring great insights, perspectives, truths, and possible solutions. So again, thanks to Undeniably Dairy and the local farmers, this is able to be aired to you every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. on my Facebook page at Rashonda of Better Bustle. You can also see it on my YouTube channel and all other podcast stations and podcast platforms. So enjoy the show, and please reach out if you have any questions or have any topics that may be of interest to you. Hi, everyone. Well, this is Panel 7, Week 7 of the Weekly Wellness Coalition panel series, centered around COVID crisis and the things that we're dealing with during these times. This particular week, we're going to focus on really working on building family instead of what's been happening to us. We've been kind of breaking apart and just being affected in so many ways in our lives. So I have with me special guests that are coming from all parts within the industries of just family and community and children. First, I have with me Misti Potter. She is the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club in Austin, Texas. I also have with me Couture. She is a clinical manager and psychotherapist for the Urban Counseling Associates. Urban Balance Counseling Associates, where she specializes in working anywhere from maternal care to working with families, adolescents, and also with adults. And last but not least, I have with me Angie Monko. Now, Angie, she is the owner of Harmony Harbor Coaching, and where she works with individuals in anywhere from empowerment to helping them to re-piece their lives. And especially during these times, definitely your voice is totally needed here. So before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you, ladies, for being a part of this panel. And I look forward to kind of jumping into our topics.
Thank you.
So, it's amazing how, you have a set of questions and then life happens. And I know just in light of what's happening right now, we know the backdrop of what we all are dealing with as a society, as Americans. And we just want to give our condolences to the families and the people that are out there that are facing some of these struggles we're having right now. And the justice, the injustice, how people are affected. That's a big part of actually what's probably going to add on to what we're dealing with as families right now. But we're going to just really jump into just focusing right now on the COVID-19 crisis, because that's still happening in our lives. And even though we may not hear this much on the media, people are still being affected every day as they're moving forward. But in light of the COVID-19 crisis, families have found themselves having to really adjust, and in their way they interact with one another, the ability to just see each other. So there's a lot of stresses that are just hovering over us right now. And so, Kelly, I'm going to really pass the baton to you in the beginning. And I know when it comes to families, when it comes to parenting, parents may have a hard time just discussing what is this thing called COVID-19, and why aren't their kids able to really get out there and do the things they typically enjoy doing. So how have you seen in your field of expertise how parents have been having to communicate with their children on the effects of the COVID-19?
Yeah, I think that, parents always need to realize that they know their children best, and to have the conversations that meet their kids where they're at. So that includes having the age-appropriate conversations, but also keeping in mind any delays that the child may have, or, if the child is, say, really, really high functioning, very intelligent, then trying to also keep in mind the intelligence level, but also the emotional maturity of the child. So, and I think that also we need to remember that kids are very in tune to what they're seeing with their parents, what they're feeling with their parents. And so if we have fears or questions, then they're going to pick up on that. So, really keeping ourselves as informed as possible to facts and just really trying to look over myths and then keep the lines of communication open with our children. But on top of that, also realizing that, we've all been kind of stuck in the house with one another. Tempers and frustrations might be getting the best of us. So, really trying to take care of ourselves and keep ourselves calm and well taken care of so that we can have communication with our children in an effective and healthy manner.
I agree, and I believe as parents, I definitely can speak for myself. I'm almost positive that everyone on this panel is a parent. We, you know, we are dealing with ourselves, and then we don't realize how to communicate, it in a way to our children because they are dealing with, even if it's something that they're gleaning from us and the energy they're receiving as parents, or just recognize something's off. All of a sudden they can't go to school. All of a sudden they can't go to their summer camps. And how does that affect that child? And I think having those conversations, like you say, that are age appropriate, is going to be, most important. How to communicate that with them because they have no idea what this really means and
Right.
what it could mean. What are the ripple effects of it? And as parents, we are juggling with not only our busy schedule and transitioning from our work dynamics, and we we probably feel guilty because we haven't taken that
Mhm.
time to talk to our kids or really appropriately communicate with them like what's happening to where they understand it. And then when it comes to adults and just how we dealing with things, and these are one of the areas that you work with, in the area of emotions. And so my question to you is, being a working adult and going through different emotions, how have you seen some of your clients feel their levels of guilt or insufficiencies when it comes to working with their kids, interacting with their kids, teaching them all those different dynamics?
And that was for
Yeah.
me, Rashonda.
Yes.
Okay, okay, I didn't hear you say my name.
Oh,
Um,
no problem.
yeah, I mean the thing is, like, I right now I'm an empty nester, so I don't have any little ones at home. And if I did, that would be a whole other story. I can imagine. But I have children. Well, I have a daughter, and she lives outside of the house. She's 24, and just being there for her is important because they follow suit. They're going to listen to how we're feeling and what emotions we're going through. And so with her, I know that right when this all began, I was actually we were coming back. We cut our trip short to New Orleans to come back right when this all happened, right in the beginning of March or the middle of March. And at that time, we were all kind of in a state of, what is this? What is going on? There was a lot of confusion. And so when we got back, we told her, we think that we should probably practice social distancing. We're in New Orleans. And now I feel differently about that. But the beginning stages of that was more fear based. I was more
Hmm.
fearful in the very beginning of this. And so she kind of took the lead from that. And, I wish she hadn't, but she did because that's where we were. We didn't know what was going on. We were still trying to understand it all. Um, so emotions are so tricky. I love using a technique called emotional freedom technique. And do you want me to even talk about that at all? But it just helps
Sure.
calm the
Yeah.
nervous system. And so when we're talking about emotions, emotional freedom technique, it's also called tapping. It just works with acupressure instead of acupuncture. And you just stimulate these energy meridians around the body, and it helps to calm that amygdala response, that fight or flight response, calms our nervous system so that we can actually think. We can actually make rational decisions, but when we're in that fight or flight, we can't. So I don't know if I got off base with your question or not, Rashonda.
No, it was just basically, as adults, we have a right to go through our emotions and trying to deal with this. But I think sometimes when we do, we also, another layer of guilt is that we feel like we haven't just kind of taking that time to talking to our kids about it, and I think
Right.
unconsciously we just don't have those conversations and we just assume that they're okay, and we have to deal with
Yeah.
ourselves first, like Kelly said, to be able to communicate with them that's going to be effective to helping them to
Right.
understand and helping them through their times. And speaking of kids, a lot of kids that I mean, honestly, I hadn't had that conversation with my son when it initially happened. And when you're a kid, when you're in a kid's in their shoes, they probably have feelings of being dismissed, or if they're feeling anxiety or uncertainty, I mean, it's only, they don't know how to really cope with that. And
Mm.
Missy, you work directly with kids and building kids to be, in positions to where they can be successful. With you working within your community, especially with the younger students and the kids, have you seen, I mean, how could you speak upon, how they may have been feeling, what you've heard about what they're going through, dealing with the stress and uncertainties?
I think initially they were excited because spring break was extended, and then
Yeah.
another week was added, and then another week was added. And, I personally have an 18-year-old who just graduated from high school and a 9-year-old. And even in my own household, the 9-year-old didn't realize he wasn't probably going back to school. The 18-year-old was extremely frustrated because he missed out on the last part of his entire senior year. So there's a lot of mixed emotions. Even here at the club, the younger kids, you could see they were, um, we closed down just for the few days of spring break with that, because this was when everything blew up, and kind of like Angie, no one really knew. So we were all kind of acting out of that initial fear and gut, knee jerk reaction of what are we going to do? And, so kids were sad. And then all of a
Yes.
sudden the platform changed and they had to learn how to do their entire academic classes and everything else online. And then there was this whole other issue. And then there was, well, you might come back to school or you might not come back to school. So the uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
in our kids' lives really kind of left them with a lot of questions and anguish and animosity and fear. So even today, we started our summer program, and one of our young ladies came in, and she is 8 years old, and she came in, all gloved up and masked, and it's not required for our kids to do that. And she was in tears. And her mother asked her,
Oh,
why? And she's been coming here now for a while. And they told her then, they said, you don't have to wear all those, sweetheart. You can take them all off. And as soon as she took everything off, like this flood of relief just came over her, and she got the biggest smile and she was ready to go to class. So I think it's going to take us a lot of time to really now peel back the fear that's been instilled in all of our kids over the past 11 weeks, because that's all they've seen. That's all they have been
true.
exposed to is if you're out and you're breathing air, or if you're touching things in the wrong way, you're going to get this and you could possibly die. And that's how devastating it's been kind of pitched out there to our entire community.
Yep.
So I think as those of us who deal with our children, it's going to take some time to start peeling that reality back for our kids so that they can find a new norm. And not even a
Mm-hmm.
new norm, but just get back to being a kid again.
True. And I think that speaks a lot about like children, their capacity of what they see and understanding time and the depthness of it is just not there. So all they know is that they're the things that made them kids are taken away from them.
Yeah.
And like the young child that you mentioned, like just to take off the gloves and the mask. I mean, I'm no telling what she felt like, what that meant for her to wear that, and for her to not have for it to be taken off, but just allow her to just be a kid again,
Mhm.
and when it
Yeah.
comes to just um, how the child going to perceive this, what impact it's going to make on their life. It's kind of like all of us have. We know what we were doing during 9/11. We knew we were doing these different like life changing events. It's interesting to find out what kind of impact will it make on their lives, dealing with this. Um, and so when you look at the changes, I mean, changes is a good thing, right? Change can be good, and some change can be not so good. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. But when we're dealing with changes and how we're adjusting and adapting, one of the double-edged swords is, and Angie, I'm going to bring the question to you for this one. When it comes to the working adults, the parents, they are kind of caught between a rock and a hard spot, because actually, Misty, when I talked about this a couple of days ago, But, you know, parents are debating on if they're going to work, or are they going to are they going to pay for childcare, you know, or are they going to, you know, find a way to still work and take care of their children? Are they going to be able to afford to take care of their children if they can't work? And then, you know, summertime is here, and not having the summer programs to keep them occupied. There's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to just recognizing how to really manage this. So, Angie, again, I know you mentioned earlier one of the ways you manage stress. What would you speak upon, like these parents that, you know, how can they just kind of manage through some of the present challenges that they're facing, and just prepare them for some of the challenges that may be in front of them moving forward?
You know, I did not prepare for these questions because I wanted them to just come off the cuff for me.
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
that's how I work best. And the story that just came to my mind was from a woman who does the emotional freedom technique. And she was sharing how when she was growing up, that it was the time, I don't know if it was, I don't know, there was an economic crisis, okay?
Okay.
Kind of like right now. And when she saw her dad go through this, where they once had quite a bit of money, and now all of a sudden the real estate market fell and they lost so much. And she was able to watch her dad and how he was so resilient. Even though he'd lost so much of his money in their savings, she watched him stay calm through this experience. And instead of it becoming a trauma, because this is a trauma for everybody, you know, to some degree, instead of it becoming a trauma, it actually started to form an imprint in her as she got older. Looking back at that time of crisis, she was amazed that she asked her dad, like, how can you do this? How can you stay calm after we just lost everything? And, you know, he just said, you know, hun, things are going to come and things are going to go. Like, everything passes and everything gets better and it improves. And it was his stability that she remembered instead of the crisis. And so I think that we can do that for our children, you know, and if we can stay calm. So how do we stay calm? I am such a big fan of emotional freedom technique because it works so well. And so the trauma, like the kids are experiencing, they can use this, and their energy system is so open and receptive. Adults have a lot more layers of baggage, you know, of time, where we build up all these beliefs. Whereas children, they don't have as much story as we do. So this technique is so powerful to help them calm their nervous system, which has been disrupted by trauma, and they can regain that sense of safety. And so parents can do that and be that role model for their children.
And the way, when you're describing this emotional freedom technique, is it a pro? Is it modifiable to where it's good with kids, and it can be modified for
Absolutely.
adults?
Yeah, there's books for children too, you know, and instead of saying, you know, you say a sentence like, you know, even though I'm feeling, and fill in the blank, unsafe, unprotected, it's unfair, whatever that is, I love and accept myself. For children, they would say, even though I'm feeling this way, I'm still a good kid. You know, even though I'm feeling blah, 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 I'm still a good kid. And you say that like 3 times, and then you go into the actual tapping technique. So.
Okay. It sounds like it's a form of, like, you know, affirmation, self-talk, just changing your perspective, practicing different, you know, having a different perspective than what you're presented with.
It's
To
much
help
more than
you.
affirmations, though. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
lot more than just affirmations. It's actually lots of studies to support how it changes the neural pathways of our brain. So, yeah, it's much more. It's beyond affirmations. You know, it's actually working with the body. It's like acupuncture without needles. It's acupressure. I'm just curious if Kelly or Misty are familiar with tapping. No?
I'm not. No, I'm about to start taking notes, actually, because
Same
I'm really
here.
interested now.
It's like, I want you to go deeper into it, because I'm wanting to wrap my head around it. I know that it seems like it's probably a lot of layers, Angie,
Right.
to it.
Kelly, are you familiar with it?
I'm not, but it almost sounds kind of like EMDR. So I'm
It is
interested
not
in learning more about
EMDR,
it. Well,
but I'm familiar with EMDR as well. It
right.
has a
With
little bit in there the original tapping actually had a little bit of EMDR in there.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very, very powerful, and it's really very simple, and kids respond to it amazingly well as adults.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's as research develops, it's just you're finding it's multiple ways to help people to manage some of the trauma that they're having.
Right.
So thanks for sharing that, Angie.
You're welcome.
Now we're focusing on communicating to kids, and it's how we talking to them in a way that they understand and they can adapt. But I'm going to flip it. Kelly, I'm going to ask you this question. What should parents kind of avoid telling their kids, or, when it comes to this information, or because, everything that you, whether it's your actions or your words, you play a role in shaping their environment. So what are some things that parents can try to not include in their conversations or their actions and responses?
Yeah, I think, with a lot of other things in life, we really want to be very cautious when it comes to describing, gory details of something, or getting into the catastrophic levels that certain things can actually be at certain times. And, when we go onto social media often, we're looking at death rates, we're looking at the rise in cases. Our kids can pick up on that. And if we're
Mm-hmm.
talking to them directly about, oh my gosh, these people are perishing, this is terrible, they're going to start developing anxieties and fears about that kind of thing. So really, we need to be monitoring what they're watching on television, what they're, for older kids, what they're looking at regarding social media, and really step in and put some barriers between them and that communication to make sure that it is age appropriate. And just to be aware that, during these times, they're also going to be getting information maybe from their friends, who could be getting information from unreliable sources. So just trying to be there for them. And if we're noticing as parents that maybe they're starting to have nightmares, or they're getting more irritable than usual, or they're just more jumpy than usual, those can all be signs that the child is depressed, that they're anxious. And then if we're noticing that their functioning just really is starting to go downhill, seeking out some help for them, even if it's for them to talk to a therapist for a few times, that can be very powerful, just to give them somebody to talk to and bounce things off of. And, in some cases, they can go to see a play therapist, and that way they can express themselves through play, especially very young children, when they can't really process their thoughts and their feelings effectively. So play, even if they're playing with their parents or playing with their siblings, play can be very, very powerful.
Yeah, those are great points when dealing with helping kids through this. I think that's one area that and the reason I'm putting energy into this part right here is because we laid the groundwork for how our kids are going to receive this and how they're going to deal with it. So I think it's important to just really put that information out there, and how to recognize children when they are going through this, and how to kind of put them at center and helping them manage through these things. And we also have to realize that, us as adults, how, when it comes to, how we, or, maybe dealing with stress ourselves, be a little bit more short tempered, a little bit snappy towards each other. So when it comes to marriages and relationships, Kelly,
Yes.
this topic is talking about building, not breaking our family during these times. I even heard, again, they're telling how reliable the source is, but they were talking about how the divorce rate has been kind of shooting up a little bit, because people are kind of forced to kind of be around each other a little longer than they, 24/7. And it's always a side story to everything, but it just, to me, reflects the stress that people are dealing with within their homes. And it seems like, again, it's a double-edged sword. You can use it as an opportunity to build closer bonds and create a new traditions and create new ways to be around each other. But it also can be a brewing pot for some areas where there's resentment, people are not handling it well. I mean, can you speak up on any of those things when it comes to some of the things that, on the negative side, unfortunately, that some of the adults may be facing with each other?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, with this type of COVID-19, one of the things with the shelter in place, the social distancing, maybe not going back to work, there have been increases in domestic violence, in child abuse,
Mm-hmm.
just discord in general. And that really does create a difficult foundation for the entire family when it's, there is that discord.
Oops.
And yeah, this has been incredibly difficult for people just in a number of ways, financially, emotionally, relationally. So absolutely, yes, it's been a very difficult time for relationships. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Angie, did you want to pipe in, jump in on this part? It seems like
Um,
this is probably area that you probably have seen a little bit
yeah.
too.
Well, like I said, my husband and I are empty nesters, so we're here by ourselves right now. And, that I just thought, well, what can we do? How can we capitalize on this opportunity? And so we started a process right around March 17th, somewhere right around that time. And what we're doing, we call it the JTM, which is journal, tap, and meditate. So what we do is we sit down, we set a timer for 5 minutes, and we just journal what we're feeling, whatever we're feeling in that moment. And then after 5 minutes, Steve, my husband, actually said, well, why don't we share what we just wrote? So we start sharing, and then we share what we wrote. We just read what we wrote. And then we set the timer for 5 more minutes. It's like a 5-5-5 JTM process. And then the second 5 minutes, we will do the technique of emotional freedom technique that I was saying, and we'll do our tapping to release whatever it is that we've been not expressing. And then in the
Hmm.
last 5 minutes, usually it's 5, 10, or 15 minutes, we'll do a meditation, whether it's a guided meditation that I've picked or just one that we just make sit in silence. And so we did it right before this call, actually. And we've been doing it every day. And
Wow.
what the beauty of that thing is that, and it's brought us closer together, no doubt about it. We're much
Hmm.
more connected. And the reason it's so beautiful is that when we write and then we share what we've written, we're truly being honest with whatever's going on. Like I just shared something, like I was annoyed with Steve, right? And the thing is, it's a safe thing because he made a comment the other day. He's like, well, I know when I share in our JTM process that you're not going to say anything. You're just going to listen to me. So it's been very beautiful. So
Yeah.
we try to turn lemon into lemonade, with that
Mm-hmm.
process.
Yeah. Hmm. I think that's a good technique, and even for like maybe some of the older children too. Like they're at that age.
Absolutely.
Misty, we may have to try that, Misty.
But I'm thinking, could I get my 18-year-old to do that? I don't know. We could try.
Yeah. Kelly, do you have any kids? I don't mean to
I have,
exclude you.
yeah, no, I have two. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. So
Okay. Yeah.
it's been interesting, and having my daughter come not going to school any longer and doing everything online. It's been wonderful. It's been frustrating. It's great to spend more time with her, and they've had a lot more time to fight. So they got a head start,
Yes.
my son and my daughter, on
Yeah.
summertime fighting. So that's been another thing that's been a challenge here.
Yes. So
Um,
many.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Angie, I really like that technique. I think that that's something that can be applicable to relationships, to family members that are from afar. All different realms. I think that can be applicable. So thanks for sharing that.
You're
And
welcome.
so we're gonna move this forward because I want people to think outside of coronavirus. Yes, we're dealing with this right now, but there's life after this. So when it comes to helping people adapt to as a family moving forward, um, there are many moving pieces that can be a part of that. And one of the pieces I found when I spoke with Misty was that for the Boys and Girls Club, they are really, their hands are deep within the community, and their goal is to serve the students, but they indirectly serve the family as well. And so, Missy, when it comes to some of the new programs that you guys have implemented with the families, what have you seen what have been some of the challenges utilizing some of these services, but what have been some of the beautiful pieces that you've seen with the ability to kind of keep family together with what you guys do?
Yeah, so we've seen quite a few. So when this all started 11 weeks ago, the school districts closed down, everything shut down, and we went from serving 3,000 kids a day to 30. And we went from 32 club sites to 2. And the only reason we had the one big one is because we built it last year. Um, and so literally
Big
within
difference.
72 hours, we had to pivot our entire service delivery model and fundraising model. And what are we going to do? And that was the question I threw back to our leadership team. And essentially, I just asked them, if we can't service our kids the way that we're used to, how do we get to them? How do we continue to service all of the kids and their needs? Because now they needed us more than ever. We did a survey with our parents, and out of 2,200 surveys, 98% of them came back unemployed. 64% of them said that their middle school and high school students didn't have access to the internet or technology. So we had some really big gaps that we needed to step into pretty quick and help them as much as we could. So we started a program called Club on the Go, and basically we filled 2,000 to 3,000 bags a day and we gave them out at 11 different sites, and we had 3 different distribution center or 3 different days at our 11 sites, and just started giving out these bags. And the bags had food in them, but they also had academic programs in them, and then we filled them with supplies. And so that also attached to a DIY video that we set up on our own channel through YouTube. And so what we saw out of all of that is, fast forward now 11 weeks, we've given out 126,000 meals, snacks, and milks, and we've done over 25,000 bags. And we have over 700 of these DIY videos now set up on YouTube through our channel. But the cool thing about it is whatever's in the bag, which was like over 500,000 supplies, is what we've given out to kids, tied directly to the curriculum that is TEKS aligned for here in Texas, that then ties directly to the DIY video. And parents are literally sitting down now with their kids and doing these really cool, fun activities with the kids. And they're sending us pictures, and they're sending us, our Facebook posts and things like that of their kids doing these really fun activities. So out of all of what has happened, I think that the really positive thing is it really is forcing parents and kids to interact with one another at a different level, and they're having fun. And so our number one core value here is fun. And so that's what we try to infuse into everything we're doing. But we're also providing a service to the parents, right? So we're giving them resource
Tools.
Documents for, how do they not only teach, but resource documents for food services, for helping them find new jobs. And we're doing them in English and Spanish, because that seems to be a really big gap also, is the language barrier. And so, really trying to engage everybody in a different way. And it's a drive-through system. And I don't know if you've ever delivered or handed out things to families, but when you get a line of 350 cars in one location, and all you're giving them is a bag of supplies and, 5 meals that are the equivalent of an MRE, we're not giving them steak and lobster. And these parents are so incredibly grateful for what it is that we're giving them. And then you create partnerships, with your local pizza companies like Pizza Hut, Papa John's, and all of those. And then we're giving free pizzas out to everybody. The service to the parents, just the light in their eyes when they pulled up, and they were so grateful and they were excited. And then they send back the pictures to us. So we knew we kind of had something special going on, and we really built on that. So we're going to continue that until schools open again. So we'll see how Club on the Go goes, because it's pretty labor intensive, and bless our staff's hearts, but they've hung in there, and they've really adapted to it.
And I mean, it kind of filled in that void, even just taking the pressure off the family, the parents, especially if they can't afford the food, their children not being able to, continue to be educated or interact. I mean, it really, it seems like you guys found a nice formula that's kind of plug in there, plug in that space. It really helped them to transition as we were all trying to do that. So that's
well,
really
what
great
it
to hear
allowed
about.
us to do too. It allowed us once a week or twice, wherever they came through, to connect with our parents again. And so every club director at each one of those locations had a chance to say, hey, how are you doing? What do you need? We've given out over $5,000 worth of gift cards to parents so they could go buy groceries. So it's really that opportunity for, the kids were in the back seat, they're hanging out the windows saying hi, and they can't wait to come back to the club. So if there was nothing else that came really good out of everything that happened, it was the ability for parents to work with their kids, but our role to show that we're here. We were here before this started. We're here today for you. We're going to be here when this is all over. We're your one constant. We're not going anywhere, and we're excited for you to come back.
Great. And it sounded, I remember you said that this is something that some other Boys and Girl Clubs have adapted as well, adopted as well.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a great way, great and very innovative way to just quickly like find that hole that needs to be filled and help those families through these times. So that's great to hear that. Great to hear that. And dealing with families in their times, when it comes to what's happening in the household, like Kelly, like you said earlier, like your children, like they had a head start on their summer fights,
Yes.
so it's a lot of like, say, parental stress, financial stress, fear, even just people that are dealing with other people in their lives that are affected by the COVID. I mean, just so many different components that are happening in ways that no one can say they've been prepared for this, but within your field or within your specialty, Kelly, if you can speak up on like within the home, what are some ways that families can work together to decrease their stress, and on the flip side, increase relationships with each other?
Yeah, I'm just, taking a walk after work, or, if one parent is able to stay home, just being able to take a walk when it's maybe cooler in the morning, especially with Texas summer coming. Really being able to sit down and play, even if it's just for 15 minutes, or read a book. It's a great time to help our younger kids start learning how to read, even if it's just very simple word books and puzzles and play and all sorts of things. Those things can help decrease stress with our kids, and they can also increase the relationships between the parents and the child. Something that my husband and I have been trying to do when we have time in the evenings is to be able to just, after the kids have gone to bed, just have maybe some dessert together, or share a cup of coffee in the mornings. And just having those bits of time where we can connect and just talk about, okay, what's going on with you and how can I help you today? And just trying to foster those positive relationships, and just taking time to realize, okay, there might be some stress today. How can we deal with it together? I think that something that I've seen that has been pretty effective has been just once a day coming up with something that we're grateful for. And even if we're wanting to pull our hair out because of our kids fighting, just being really grateful, like, wow, I'm so glad I'm getting to spend some extra time with my children today, or look at them sleep right now. They're just, it's wonderful to see them calm and happy. Just those types of things, and just being in the moment instead of trying to focus on the past. Those things kind of, that focus can lead to some depression, or trying to project too far into the future. And those are times when we can set ourselves up for anxiety. So really just reminding each other, let's be in the now. Let's try to get, through each moment together, and be grateful for the moments that we do have.
Yeah. And it just, it reminds me of kind of what Angie said, like establishing, being intentional in establishing, carving out time, with your kids, carving time with your spouse, making that time, and having a plan with as far as what can you guys do together that's undisturbed, that allows you to just, like, say, be in the moment. And when you're able to do that, you're able to build those relationships, because I feel like, I'm sure we all can speak upon, especially having, kids that are older. It's so many, we've learned it's so many, we're distracted in so many ways, from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed, that we have the people around us that we love. We haven't taken that time to just be in the moment with them, make time for them. And even for kids now, this is the opportunity, this is a golden opportunity to show your kids how important they are to you, and create new traditions, create new ways that you guys interact. This is a golden opportunity to have the significant other, have that spouse, and have these conversations where you guys can take this and grow and learn one another more, and just build stronger bonds. So those are great points that you made. And like I say, I just think we just have learned that we're jaded by distractions. We're distracted by distractions. And how can we put all our attention back on our family, because those are the people that, that we love and that represents us. So Angie, this is your opportunity here. I was reading on some of the areas that you work with people, and I know when we talked about stress and dealing with our internally and our emotions, and we know that your thoughts leads to the next steps of your responses or your approaches, and sometimes having negative thoughts can create a vicious cycle. And when that vicious cycle happens, it creates a ripple effect that can have an impact on our family, on a micro scale, but also have an impact on just the world and people around us on a larger scale. When you're looking at working with, what are some steps, what are some initial ways that people can perhaps, what are the applicable steps that people can start taking to change that language, change those thoughts so that their actions and everything that they do will follow in tow?
Well, to try to wrap up what everybody has said, Misty and Kelly and you, I was thinking to answer your question with that and bring everything sort of together here, that self-care is vital. I do a daily energy routine, and I have a pretty lengthy self-care because I do work with clients, and I just noticed that my resources were being drained because after COVID hit, because I was trying to figure out and get my head wrapped around what is going on with our society, and have we gone crazy? And so I was reading a lot and trying to figure things out. So all the more distractions, right? But one thing that I have kept very consistently for probably 15 years is a daily self-care routine. And that includes a gratitude journal. It includes some tapping. It includes meditation. It includes something called the yoga rites. And it includes the daily energy routine, which is a Donna Eden thing. And it sounds lengthy, and it kind of is. But I'm telling you what, like I told Steve, if I didn't do this, I feel like I'd be a basket case. And so to do that self-care allows me to have that patience. If my kids were here, we would have honest communication. I mean, we would. That was one of my gifts, is that we always were honest with each other. And so I would just tell them, I would level with them what's going on with this situation to the best of my perception, my truth for me. I can't speak for everybody else, but I would try to come from, if I was scared, I would admit scaredness. I'd admit fear. But I'd always stick to that self-care, because as long as I did that, then I could be there for them. Oh, I know one more point around that. By doing my own self-care and giving myself permission to take that time for myself, it's huge. Women don't do that a lot of times. We don't give ourselves time. I've talked to many, many women about this, and they're like, oh no, they always come last, and then they're frazzled and worn out and exhausted. And then they're quick tempered with their kids and everyone else. And so doing that self-care is so, so important. And at the same time, I want to say, if they do lose their temper or whatever, get upset, forgive themselves and do better, right? Because it doesn't help to have that harsh self-judgment. So,
And Angie, I completely agree with that. Speaking your truth and just being honest about how you're feeling. Our kids can pick up on that. So if you say, no, everything's fine, they're going to know something's not fine.
Right.
They know.
And I think, and when we do lose our temper, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm really sorry. I lost my temper. Will you forgive me? And I think that shows our children the importance of apologizing when they feel they've done wrong by someone.
Very true. Yeah, exactly.
And Kelly, like your question was about role modeling and becoming role models as parents, especially when you feel unqualified, undeserving. So you're perfect timing and talking about like being okay with knowing you made a mistake and letting your children know and come to them and say, I shouldn't have yelled at you, but my apologies for that. So they understand that, being a better person is recognizing perhaps your faults and being able to own it and come to that person and ask for forgiveness. Or that just teaches them ways to which how they can, address things. And so I think that's great that you said that. How can we, especially now, we have to find ways to hold our family together. And by holding your family together, it's going to be components where you're not going to be perfect. You're going to be human, and they need to see the humanness of you, so they know that, mom's getting affected by it, but she's coming, she's speaking, she's being affected by it, but she's working through it, and she's recognizing that things that she can do better, and we're having it can create actual opportunity to have a conversation with your children too.
Yeah.
So I think we're learning a lot through these times. We learn a lot about ourselves, a lot, and learn about how we're parenting and how we're making sure that we keep our families on the forefront of this, because we're the glue to keeping them together and helping them know how to cope as we're continuing through this. And being parents and being, and we know kids are the cornerstone to just everything in our lives. They're the ones going to set the pace for the future. And so, Misty, with you just work continuously, this has been like your calling in regards to children and building them and creating resources for them. What have been some lessons that you've learned from your position, working, being at the head of your organization, that you can take now to move forward in preparation for what may happen in our future regarding our kids, or even society as a whole?
I think the most important lesson that anyone can learn out of a situation like this is that there is no one size fits all response or remedy to anything. Like I started with, is 98% of our parents are unemployed currently, but they were employed at one time, right? So how did they interact with their kids during that time? And not just listening to everybody. And there's a subset of people right now. I think the number was 45 million who are unemployed nationwide. Well, they're taking that time, hopefully, to actually reinvent the dinner at the table, right? You still have a subset of parents and people who are out there who are working, 40 and 50 and 60 hours. You look at your medical profession and your frontline workers and the people who are really deep in the trenches of what's going on. On the flip side of that, you have, for instance, a lot of the parents that I have, they're in that service industry, and we need them to go back to work. We need them to be able to provide for their families, so that the care that we're providing is back to what we would typically do as an out of school time program, and not having to be the end all be all for every single problem that's out there, because no one can do that. I think that the most important thing that we can really look at is you have to be prepared as much as you can be prepared, right? So regardless of what that is, you have to lay a solid foundation of if it's love for your children, or whether it's structure. In my world, of course, it's making sure that my organization is ready for whatever happens next. And it's being able to take that next pivotal step that's going to get us to make sure that we can meet the needs of our kids and our families and our community. So I think everybody just needs to look at where they are, where they want to be. And this has been as you said, my entire career. But it's been very strategic, but it's always been that question of what happens next? I could have never predicted, COVID, and then on the back of that, riots and protests and burning streets. True. And I could have never predicted what's happened the last 11 weeks in my entire life. But to be able to adapt to it quickly and make sure that you're still answering the fundamental questions of what you need to be able to do to help those that you're entrusted to help. And in my case, it's the children and it's the families. Then that's, it's not just our responsibility, but it's kind of our privilege too. I get to wake up every single day and help families and children. And that's something I've done for 24 years now. And so, but I think it's just an intentional purpose to life, that you decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And you do your best at setting that foundation to get you there, and it's making sure your children have that same resiliency. I don't think we spend enough time in today's society teaching our children how to be resilient. We have a very, very soft set of children. And I'm speaking for my own children, my 18-year-old and my 9-year-old. If they had to grow up and live the life I lived, I don't know necessarily that they would have survived the life I had back, growing up at their age. Everyone
Yeah.
adapts in some way, but I really do think it's our responsibility, and it's what is the saying? Reach one, teach one. It's
Yeah.
our job to make sure that
It's our job.
we're taking the next generation and we're teaching them how do you survive this. But above all else, it's just it's the basics. It's love. It's care. It's making sure that we're just being kind. It's not. I don't think there's any special formula to life. It's just kindness and acceptance and tolerance. And if nothing else, I think that is exactly what this has taught us. And COVID-19 has made everyone learn to be a little more adaptable, learn to be a little more accepting, learn to not be as judgmental. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't wear a mask, don't wear a mask. But don't judge the either one, neither side, because they choose whatever it is that they choose. It's not for me to judge other people. And I think that's one of the lessons that I think people can take with them. Pretty simple to me.
Yeah, totally agree. I really feel like this has become a playbook to our opportunity, not a challenge, but an opportunity as parents, as adults, to create resiliency within our family unit, create resiliency in how we build our children to be able to kind of work through these, whether it's talking with them through it, developing new traditions, all these different components. I think this is an opportunity to do so. So again, I'm the person that will find the silver lining, and I really feel it's an opportunity that we can incorporate some new habits, some new traditions. We should get stronger. We should be focusing on getting stronger together and not breaking apart. And that's at a micro level when it comes to families, all the way, like you said, Misty, to society. Yeah. Before we're gonna, I almost wanted to bring Kelly and Angie into this, because I wanted to just, if you can give me like perhaps 15 to 20 seconds of like a takeaway, because I really want to get your insight as we're closing this particular panel, that you want to give out to any viewers or listeners from your perspective on, just ways they can look at this, handle this as going through these times.
You want me to go?
Yeah. Sure. Go ahead, Angie.
I would say that it's about inner peace. And it's all about perspective. I really firmly believe that life is not what happens to us or outside of us. It's our own internal landscape and our perception of everything. And that with that peace, if we can cultivate that somehow, like Misty, you were saying, it's how we're viewing it. That creates our own internal peace, which has a ripple effect. It has that ripple effect to our family as women, especially, and then from women in our family to our community to our world. And so focus on our internal peace. Try to stay in that love, from coming back by love instead of fear.
Great. Well said. Thank you for that. Kelly, is there anything you want to say as a takeaway?
Yeah, and Angie actually took some of the words right out of my mouth. I think really, as women, building each other up right now is so important. And just sharing with each other our triumphs and our struggles, and trying to be a little vulnerable to each other, and just doing everything out of love. Just trying to, we're all doing the best we can right now. And, these really are unprecedented times. So, just being able to lean on each other and gain strength from each other, and then put that down, siphon it back. Having a hard time talking today. Back down into our families, and really just making the foundation for our families a lot stronger as well. So it's really cyclical. Taking care of each other takes care of our families, and back around again.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Kelly. Well, we're getting ready to close the panel. Before we do close the panel, I want to give everyone an opportunity to just give the audience information about ways that they can connect with them, reach out to them, or learn more about them. Misty, I'll start with you.
Okay, so pretty easy to find. Boys and Girls Clubs of the Austin area. It's just bgcaustin.org, and we're ramped up for the summer and almost ready to start taking volunteer groups again. So we're excited to see kids and people back in our buildings.
Great. And where's the YouTube? What's your YouTube channel so people can
So it's
see
just
some of
Boys
those
and Girls Clubs of the
activities?
Austin area. It's our YouTube channel. It's our actual.
Okay.
It's just I think it's the full name. I'd have to actually get it for you, but I survive by links that people send me. I don't pay attention to what it says. So.
That's what you do when you're the CEO.
I just do what I'm told. I just click and go.
Well, I'm going to take a look at that. I like the ideas that you guys have come up with.
There's some cool stuff. If you have
people.
kids, oh my gosh, check them out. There are some really fun things that are on there. Like I said, there's 700 of them, and now we're starting Clubcast, so we're starting our own newscast with our staff. So, ton of fun. It's crazy to say you've had fun through a pandemic, but we really have kind of had a good time putting all this together and thinking differently.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you guys are doing that. Angie, want to give you opportunity?
Sure. My website is harmonyharbor.com. And so Harmony, HARMONY, Harbor, HARBOR.com. And you can reach me, my email's Angie@harmonyharbor.com. So ANGIE. So it's very simple. I've really had a good time, and I really want to echo the fact that as women, we really need to support each other, because we've been taught to not do that. And so important right now. So thank you, Rashonda, for giving us this opportunity. And Misty and Kelly, it's so nice to meet you.
It's nice.
Yes. Yes. And thank you, Angie, for bringing your voice and your perspective to the table. It's a lot of great information. Kelly?
Yes, we are at urbanbalance.com, and I can be emailed at kcouture@urbanbalance.com. That's KCOUTURE@urbanbalance.com. And our intake number is 888-726-7170. And
Great.
yes, I have to, again, piggyback off of what Angie said, and just thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you.
Of course.
And it's been really great. So thank you.
Cool. Well, I think we're all in accordance here. I love having you ladies on, and I definitely know that you all brought in some valuable insights and perspectives from your areas of specialty, and these conversations are needed during these times. So thank you for being a part of the panel. Thanks, everyone. See you guys next week.
Thank you, Rashonda.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
We'll talk
Bye-bye.
soon.
So continue to come back for more wellness-related topics. Please join me every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Central Time, right here in my dining room, to help give you information on all wellness-related topics that mean the most to you during these times. And don't forget to support our students by going to www.genyouthnow.org to learn about their grant funding program in response to the COVID-19 crisis. It's called For School's Sake. So follow them on Facebook and Instagram and see all of the impact they are making by supplying schools with resources and food needed to keep our students safe and fed. So thanks again, and see you soon.